The day I walked out of the Washington State Correctional Facility, the December rain was coming down so hard it felt like the sky was trying to wash me clean. I stood at the gate with a paper bag containing a phone that no longer held a charge, a wallet with $38 in it, and a watch my father had given me the day I turned 28. 8 years. 8 years I had been inside those walls for a crime I did not commit, and the world outside had kept spinning without me as if I had never existed at all. My name is Robert Sullivan. I am 62 years old. I built Sullivan Transport Group from a single truck and a rented warehouse in Seattle into a $38 million logistics company that moved goods across 9 western states. I had 350 employees who called me by my first name. I had a daughter named Sarah, who was my whole reason for getting up every morning. I had a wife named Patricia, whom I thought loved me, and I had a business partner named Michael, whom I trusted more than any man alive. Every single one of those things turned out to be something other than what I believed. The tax fraud charges came in the summer of 2016. The IRS showed up at my office with federal agents and a stack of documents that made my stomach drop. Shell companies I had never heard of, offshore accounts in my name, invoices for services that were never rendered, payments to vendors that did not exist. My accountant, a man I had employed for 13 years, stood in my conference room and told investigators that I had personally instructed him to falsify the records. He said it with a straight face while I sat across the table, unable to believe what I was hearing. My attorney called it one of the most thorough financial fraud setups he had ever encountered in 28 years of criminal defense. The jury saw a wealthy man who had gotten greedy, and they gave me 11 years. I served 8 with good behavior. Patricia came to the visitation center twice in the first year. She cried both times and told me she was fighting for me, that she knew I was innocent, and that she would wait. The divorce papers arrived 16 months into my sentence. She wrote a brief letter saying she could not put her life on hold. She had found someone who could be present in ways that I could not. I later learned that someone was Michael. That was not a surprise. By then, very little surprised me anymore. What broke me was Sarah. My daughter had been 29 when I went to prison. She was working as a communications director for a software company in Seattle. Happy, engaged to a man named Andrew, whom I genuinely liked. She had a future she had built for herself. When the charges came, the company Michael now ran alone terminated a vendor contract with Sarah's firm, citing a conflict of interest. Her firm let her go. Andrew's family pressured him to distance himself from the daughter of a convicted felon. The engagement ended. She spent 4 years trying to rebuild, then moved to Spokane to start over somewhere nobody knew her last name. I did not find out any of this from Sarah. She wrote to me faithfully for the first year. Cheerful letters that I now realize were carefully constructed to protect me from the full weight of what was happening to her. Then the letters changed. Shorter, less detail. Then they stopped entirely. I called. She answered sometimes. She always said she was fine. She was not fine, and I was powerless behind those walls to do anything about it. Sarah had a son, my grandson Jacob, born shortly after I went in. His father left when Jacob was 20 months old. Sarah was raising him alone in a 2-bedroom apartment in Spokane, working as an office administrator for a medical clinic. She drove a car with 180,000 miles on it. She clipped coupons. My daughter, who had grown up in a 3,800 square foot house on Mercer Island, was clipping coupons to feed my grandson. Meanwhile, Michael Brennan was living in that house on Mercer Island. He had married Patricia. He was running the company I had built, billing himself as the founder in interviews, sitting in my chair at the head of the conference table I had bought, and parking in the space with my name on it that he had simply replaced with his own. I found all of this out through a private investigator named Alex Turner. I hired Alex with the last of the money I had put aside in a small savings account that Michael had somehow missed. Alex was 58, a former Seattle detective who had left the force after a moral objection to watching the wrong man get convicted. When I called him from a prison payphone, he said, "I know your case." I always thought something was off about it. What Alex found over the following months turned everything I thought I knew into a new and uglier picture. Michael had been skimming for years. When he realized he was about to be caught, he and Patricia brought in a man named David Chen, a forensic accountant. David didn't just hide Michael's theft, he redirected it. Every fraudulent transaction was reattributed to me. The IRS investigation had no reason to look anywhere else. The evidence was immaculate, and it all pointed at me. I spent 4 weeks watching before I made a move. I went to see Sarah first. She opened the door and looked at me for 7 seconds before her voice gave out. We sat at her kitchen table for 4 hours. She told me everything she had held back. The lost job, the broken engagement, the years of struggling. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. What would knowing have helped? She whispered. I didn't have an answer then, but I had a plan. I met my grandson Jacob. He was 7 years old, small for his age, with my way of holding very still when he was thinking. He looked at me and said, "You were in prison, like a wrongful conviction. We learned about that." I told him that was exactly right. Meeting him gave me the last bit of strength I needed. Finding David Chen took another week. I tracked him to a coffee shop in Portland. He was a shell of a man, haunted by what he had done. I sat across from him and didn't leave until I had the truth. He had kept everything. The original documents, the emails, the proof that Michael had orchestrated it all. Insurance, he called it. I called it my freedom. Armed with a folder worth more than the company itself, I called Michael. Sunday morning, 10 o'clock, at the house, I told him. I didn't wait for an answer. When I walked into my old house on Mercer Island, it felt like a museum of a life that wasn't mine anymore. Michael and Patricia were there, dressed in expensive clothes, looking at me with a mixture of pity and fear. "Robert, whatever hard feelings you have," Michael began. "I don't have hard feelings," I interrupted. "I have evidence." I played the recording of David Chen's confession. I showed them the emails. The room went silent. I saw them look at each other, and for the first time I saw their relationship for what it was. Not love, but a shared crime. "What do you want?" Michael asked, his voice cracking. "I want everything back," I said, "and I want you to tell the truth." The legal battle took months, but the evidence was undeniable. Michael pleaded guilty to federal fraud and was sentenced to 12 years. Patricia signed a confession in exchange for leniency and disappeared to Arizona. The company was returned to me, and though it was bruised, it was still standing. But the real victory wasn't in the courtroom. Sarah moved back to Seattle. She didn't want a job at the company. She wanted to build her own path, but she was close by. Every Saturday morning, I take Jacob to a diner. He tells me about his week, and we argue about where the napkins go on the table. He says they should go on the right. I tell him he's right. I thought about a question Sarah asked me once. If the hatred had consumed me. I told her what I felt wasn't hatred. It was precision. It was the refusal to let a lie be the final word of my story. The people who tried to erase me are gone. I am still here. My name is Robert Sullivan. I am a grandfather, a father, and a man who knows that while the truth can be buried, it can never stay hidden forever. Keep fighting. Document everything. Be more patient than your enemy. I am living proof.